Hi, you guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I am home from vacation now. It was lots of fun, so I hope you guys have had some time to spend with your family this summer. Found ways to connect with them despite quarantine and stuff. So these last few weeks, we've been talking about the past and the story of our past. And if we were to write a book about our past, what would it be titled? And then I introduced the idea, what would your future book be titled? We talked about that last week a little bit. This week, I wanted to talk about how to actually write your story, how to create your future and have the future that you want to have. Okay. So it all starts with a willingness to dream, to use our imaginations, to allow ourselves the space to really think of possibilities without just immediately shutting them down, just saying that's impossible, that's too hard, I've never done that before, how could I even do that, without all of that noise. Okay, so I'm going to teach you guys a little bit about how to dream. So I want you guys to think about, and if you've got like a piece of paper and pencil, that would be awesome. You can start writing some of your answers down here. But I want you to think about if this were a perfect world and you had no limitations, like no money or health limitations or anything like that, what would you want to have or do? Would you want like a bigger house or a smaller house? Some people want a smaller house. Would you want more time with your loved ones? Would you want to learn a new skill or start a business? Would you want a working car? Would you want a more healthy body? Like, what are all the things you want? And as you're thinking about this, I don't want you to think about how. Okay, your brain is going to want you to think about how. Okay, because your brain wants to protect you, and it's like, oh, you're thinking about doing that? Like, here's all the reasons I think that's a bad idea. This could be dangerous to you. It's going to be too hard. It's going to use a lot of energy. You don't have the resources for that. It's going to give you all these reasons. Okay, so we're just not going to think about that right now. We are going to give ourselves permission to just imagine and think openly without questioning how it's going to happen. Okay, so in a perfect world where there's no limitations, what would you want to have or do? Okay. And then when you've got your list there, oh, sorry, getting in my head of myself again. So, I want you to think about all the small things and all the big things, like clear down to like, I want a new set of spoons because none of my spoons match. All the way up to I want to go on a vacation once a year to some like far off country, really small and really big, all of it. Okay, just go wild. I want you to come up with at least like 25 things. Okay. And now I do want to clarify when I'm talking about like there being no limitations. I'm not talking like unicorns here, okay, you guys? I don't want you to be like, well, I want to have magical powers and ride a Pegasus into the sky. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if you have unlimited resources and unlimited money and unlimited ability, okay? I'm not talking about unicorns and Pegasus and magic and superpowers. Now, once you've got this list, and I seriously, I want it to be a list of at least 25 things, because that's really going to stretch you. That's going to challenge a lot of you, because a lot of you are going to be like, I've never really thought about what I want before. Because you ask a lot of people, women, mothers especially, Like, what do you want? And the answer is most often, I just want everybody to be happy. And that sounds all well and good, but it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not concrete. What is happiness and why does everybody have to be happy? And do we want to be happy all the time? And if you've listened to me, you probably know, no, we do not want to be happy all the time. Okay, so that's just way too vague. We want to get really concrete and really solid. I want you to put away all that noise of how selfish it is to think about yourself and these things that you want, because you're not being selfish right now. You haven't even done anything right now. You're just thinking of different things that maybe you would want. Okay, and it doesn't mean that you're not happy now. You can be very happy and content right now and still want things, and be okay if you don't have those things, right? Like, maybe you have 3 cars and you love those cars, but if 2 of them were to get in a crash, you'd be like, well, you know what? Life is still good. I'm okay. That's an amazing place to be, to feel at peace with where you are, and to love yourself and to love where you're at, where you've come from, and to love where you're going, and to know that you are just as worthy of happiness and love right now as you ever will be, right? So yeah, so you can love where you're at, be happy and peaceful where you're at, and still want more things. And know that if and when you get those things, life isn't going to be any better. It's just going to be different, right? Okay, so none of the noise about how selfish thinking about more things or doing more things or having more things is. We're just going to put that noise on the back burner, and we can definitely work through that later. Right now, we're just focusing on making the list of all the things you want, and allowing yourself to dream and not judging yourself for wanting things, okay? Then I want you to pick the one thing that means the most to you, okay? Now, I don't want you just picking one that sounds easy. Like, this one's the most attainable. Let's circle that one. No, I want you to pick the one that means the very most to you. And I want you to ask yourself, why do I want this? Okay, what's my reason for wanting this? Is it out of fear or is it out of love? I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're 40 years old and you want to learn how to play the piano. And you're going to have a whole bunch of noise about why that's impossible. But we're ignoring that right now. Just be like, hey, calm down. We'll get to you in a minute. And then think, why do I want to learn to play the piano? And some people might come up with a reason like, well, everyone in my family plays a musical instrument except for me, and I'm left out. Now, that seems like fear, right? That's not love for yourself. That's fear of being left out. And do you like that reason? Okay. Or maybe you want to learn to play the piano because it's something that you have always dreamed of and you didn't have the opportunity when you were younger, and now you've got a little bit more money in your pocket, and maybe that's just something you really wanted, like you've always wanted to do. Like, you just like the idea of learning how to play the piano, and that is a good enough reason for you. Okay, so what do you want the most? Why do you want it? Do you want it out of fear or out of love? And do you like your reason for wanting it? Because that's really important. If you don't like your reason for wanting it, what's going to be your motivation to pursue it? There won't be any. So now you've allowed yourself the time to dream and imagine. You have looked at what you want the very most. You have determined why you want it and if you like that reason. Now we get to think about the how, okay? So instead of just automatically throwing out all the reasons why it's impossible, I want you to first think, if it were possible, how would I do it? Like, what's the first step? Okay. So keeping with our piano idea, maybe like, well, the first step is to do some research on different piano teachers in the area, or different piano playing apps. Like, what are the different ways that you could learn how to play the piano? Maybe you want to learn to play the piano on your own, without help. So then maybe the next step would be to look at different books. What kind of books are there that will teach me how to do this? And then like you just go from step to step, okay? Instead of being like, this is impossible, I can't do it for these reasons, be like, if it was possible, how would I do it? And your brain is going to be like, oh, this is too much work. Don't ask me to do impossible things. And you're going to be like, you know what? You can do a lot. You are so capable, little brain. Just suck it up and let's do this. So yeah, you really have to have patience and nurture your brain, because it is going to flip out. It's like, you've never made me do this before. Why are you making me do this? But it can handle it. It just needs practice, okay? So if it were possible, how would you do it? What would be the first step, okay? And come up with like as much as you can think of, okay? So like, you may want to be like, I don't know. First of all, you do know. I mean, there's going to be some technical things that you don't actually know how to do. Like in playing the piano, you're like, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to hold my hands. It's like, okay, well then research how you're supposed to form your hands over the keys. That's a step. Okay? I don't know how long it's going to take me to learn a piece. Okay, well, how long is it going to take you to learn the first line? Map that one out. Okay? When you've done all of that, that's going to give you, like, you are learning to have control over what you think about. You are teaching your brain who is in charge. You're telling it to calm down and pay attention and to focus. Okay? And this is some really powerful work. And now, after we've done all of that, we're going to let our brain have its say. Okay? We're going to be like, okay, what are all the reasons this might not work out? And your brain is going to be like, finally, you're listening to me. And you're going to write down all the reasons that this is impossible and it's never going to happen. Okay? I'm too old for this. I don't have the money for this. I can't work this into my budget. All the things. Okay? And then you're going to, and then like your brain will have had its say. It's not going to sit there and poke at you and bug you anymore. Okay? And then you can take that list and look at every single one and address the problem. Okay? Because what you just did was you made a list of barriers. Okay? And when you write a solution to those barriers, that's how you get over them. That's how you break through them and get past them. Okay? So I don't have enough time. Okay? Well, they'd be like, well, I know how to work my schedule. I know how to fit this in. I know that there's some things that I don't care about as much. I know that I can make this work if I really want to. And I've looked at my why, and clearly I want to, right? And then you're going to be like, you're going to look at the next one and say, oh, well, it says that I don't have this in my budget. Well, of course I don't have it in my budget. I've never done it before. But I know how to work the budget. I know how to go through and see how much it's going to cost and see where I can save in other areas. Because you totally have the capability of doing that. And now you have, and when you've gone through all of those reasons why you can't do it, all those barriers, you have the answer to overcoming those barriers. There's nothing in your way. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, there's nothing here stopping me now because I have a solution to everything. So that's the process, you guys, okay? You're going to make a list of at least 25 things that you want to do or see or have or learn. And don't judge yourself. Just allow yourself to imagine and write it all down. You're going to pick one thing that means the very most to you, regardless of its level of difficulty. Then you're going to write down why you want it. Is it out of love or out of fear? And do you like your reasons? Okay. Then you're going to think to yourself, if it was possible, how would I do it? What's the first step? Then you're going to write down all the objections your brain has as to why that's not even possible. And you're going to answer each barrier with a solution, with a strategy plan. And there's a couple more things that I want to say, just to take note of this, okay? I don't want you guys to define your future by your past, okay? Because if you're basing your future on your past, you'd never learn anything, right? Like you'd be 5 years old and be like, but I can't read. I've never done it before. There's no supporting evidence that says that I can read or that I'll ever be able to read. So you just don't learn to read. I know that sounds super ridiculous, but so does this next part, right? It's going to sound that ridiculous no matter what it is or when it is in your life, okay? Whether it's you're 40 years old and you want to learn to play the piano, and maybe you're sitting there telling your spouse or your children or your friend, like, I have no supporting evidence that I can learn to play the piano because I've never done it before. So clearly this is impossible. It's like, that sounds just as silly as the 5-year-old telling you that he will never learn to read. Or maybe you're going to think like, I've tried these several different ways and it hasn't worked. So clearly there's no way that it's going to work. Well, as my favorite inventor ever, Thomas Edison, said, like, you only have to find one way, okay? He found like 1,000 different ways how not to make a light bulb. And then he found the one way that it did work. So you need to base your future off of your future. Okay, you need to look to the future and see yourself having achieved this thing that you wanted to do or have, and draw from that. Okay, so like when you look into the future and see yourself having attained this thing, in what ways are you different? Okay, like what habits have you developed? How do you think differently? Like, are you more diligent or are you more relaxed? Are you more or less of a perfectionist? Do you wake up earlier? Things like that. Like, how are you different? And also, how are you the same? I mean, like maybe you spend less time doing good things and more time doing better things or great things. Okay. And when you see yourself in that role, you can ask yourself, how did I get there? What steps did I take? What kind of a person will you need to become to achieve this goal? Because right now, you're the kind of person who doesn't play the piano, for example's sake. But you want to become the kind of person who does play the piano. So in what ways will you have to change to become the kind of person who learns and plays a new instrument. And here is the final question, okay? What can you do today that is going to move you in the direction of that desired outcome, okay? I'm not asking you to come up with an entire plan of exactly how and when you're going to do it and have all the answers right now. It's not what I'm asking. What I want to know is, what can you do today that's going to move you in the direction of that desired outcome? Okay? Because progress is progress, but fear and indecision is not progress. Okay? So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys found that helpful. You guys can go ahead and leave me a review on iTunes. If you're listening on iTunes, you can also reach me by voice message on anchor.fm /Angie-Ahlstrom. And if you're taking these steps and really looking into it and you're like, well, I really need more help with this. I need more clarification. I am right here. You guys can get on angielifecoaching.com and sign up for a free session with me, and I will point you in the right direction. Thanks for listening. You guys have an amazing week.